Hello students, Mr. Young here with Chapter 19, Lesson 1. Alright, gotta reach back. Long ago. Not that long ago, because it was still marking period 3. Star Wars! No, I mean bang 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 bang! That's more like it. Not all that long ago, we talked about the California Gold Rush. You'll remember it was 1849. That's why we called those people the 49ers. And you'll recall that there were boom towns and bust towns, and basically the California Gold Rush didn't last that long. But where we pick up today, people were still looking for gold in other places. And there was, in fact, more gold and silver hiding in the West. Between all that prospecting for precious metals and the massive influx of people looking to get rich, and this influx in part thanks to the Transcontinental Railroad that we'll talk about today, between all these factors, the West became a veritable storm of lawlessness and debauchery. We talked a little bit about how there was no law in a lot of these towns. But let's move on. Let's talk about it. So, people were pretty bummed when the California Gold Rush went dry. Some folks settled down, opened shops, or went to farming, but others didn't give up in their search for precious metals. As it turns out, there was more gold out west. It was just chilling in Pikes Peak, Colorado, which was found in 1858, sparking a new gold rush. The problem was that most of this gold at Pikes Peak was found in ore form, meaning it was mixed with other metals. So you weren't digging out a chunk of just gold, like a gold. It was mixed with other metals, so you pull it out and you'd be like, what do I have here? Like, it's got like ice and water in it. It'd have like maybe iron and gold in it. It was all mixed, and you can't turn that in. It had to be it basically had to be processed to get the gold out. As a result, not a lot of people got rich with this gold rush because they needed to basically have the capability to remove the gold from the ore, and most people didn't have that. So only a handful of individuals and companies made a lot of money with this deposit because only a handful of people and companies had the ability to extract the gold from the ore. Alright, Comstock Lode. What the heck is the Comstock Lode? Well, my friends, in 1859, prospectors made a huge discovery on the claim of one gentleman, Henry Comstock. They discovered a massive lode, or big vein of silver, a big vein of silver ore in what is now Nevada. Comstock Lode is in Nevada. Thousands of mines opened up near the lode. Wherever a mine opened, there was often a boom town that would spring up. Oftentimes, these towns had no law and populations were mostly male. They were rowdy places, and your book totally glosses over this, but people did like 2 or 3 things in those towns. They drank, they went to brothels, and they gambled. That's it. It was like Las Vegas everywhere. Oftentimes, as I mentioned, these towns had no law, and so there was no police officers, no sheriffs, so they kind of relied on vigilante justice. I'm fairly certain we went over vigilantes before, and we talked about like Batman and that. And so there was no jury, no trial, no judges. If you broke the law, a posse might come and hang you. Wild West, that's what it was. What few women did come to these boom towns often set up churches and schools, which is great. It's just there weren't very many of them. And then once the gold or silver ran out in the mine, the town would become a ghost town. Basically, everyone would leave, the buildings would be left, there'd be very few people left, and they just turned into ghost towns, like with the tumbleweed blowing through and the lone dog barking at someone. Okay, spanning the continent. In the 1850s, railroad companies set about trying to find a route that would connect the east and west coast. Work began during the Civil War, so the route would run through the north. The north wanted to go through the north, the south wanted to go through the south, but during the Civil War, the south had better things to worry about than a rail line heading to the west coast. So it ended up being in the north. It was a monumental task. 2 companies took on, well, the enormity of laying 1,700 miles of track from coast to coast. So the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific companies were the companies to do that. Both companies were given land grants and subsidies and raced to lay track as fast as they could. Essentially, the government gave them money for the track they laid, helping companies to make more money. Why did the government do this? Because they knew that the rail lines, a transcontinental railroad, would be good for everyone. So they helped the companies do that. We end up with the map here. See, there's the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific. And then you end up with more lines later. So the Union Pacific started their line in Omaha, Nebraska, and worked their way west. They employed a great deal of Irish immigrants, veterans of the Civil War, and African Americans. The Central Pacific started work in Sacramento, California, and worked their way east, and they employed mostly Chinese immigrants. So construction of the first transcontinental railroad was completed on May 10th, 1869, at a place called Promontory Summit in the Utah Territory. The last spike was a golden spike, was driven in by the governor of California. First transcontinental railroad was complete. I know what you're thinking. Man, there's a golden spike. I would have taken that. It didn't take very long before they replaced that golden spike with a regular spike because they knew someone would steal it. Here they are, the historical picture. See, both lines met up, first transcontinental railroad. Now, by 1883, 2 more lines ran from east to west. It's 3 lines. You can see it here. The effects were huge. The need for more line caused a surge in steel production. People and goods could now move easily from coast to coast. Towns sprung up on the lines that grew into cities. Freight shipping costs dropped from 2 cents a ton to 75 cents a ton. Now, all of that sounds pretty cheap, but that's cut in half, more than half. The American Railway Association created 4 time zones. Here they are. So there would be no confusion over train schedules. See, before we had those actual time zones, towns kind of figured out what time it was by making noon the time when the sun was directly overhead. This caused confusion and scheduling conflicts, and I think maybe some accidents. So the American Railway Association made 4 time zones in the country. Those time zones would become official in the year 1918. Hey, that's it for today. Let's move on to the quiz. Seemed like a lot more when I was making the lesson. Let's go ahead and squeeze this quiz dry of any points as the miners squeeze that silver out of the Comstock load. I enjoy coming up with these. Alright, 10-point quiz, 5 questions. Nothing crazy. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, hey, have a good one, alright?